Hey guys, Casey Ferris here. Thanks for checking out another video of mine here on YouTube. Today, we are talking about matching cameras. This is a huge subject, super important. And I was gonna do a pretty simple little how to match one camera to another tutorial, but I just went crazy. I just lost my dang mind. Instead, I'm gonna match 10 different cameras together with the technique that I use to match shots. So let's take a look at what we got. I have a mock interview set up here, just with kind of some basic 3-point lighting. Have a shot on an A7S, a GH3, a Mavic Pro, Ursa Mini shot in RAW, Canon T3i, GoPro Hero 5, Ursa Mini 4K and BMD Film 4K, the 4K cinema camera from Blackmagic, a DJI Spark, and a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. So it's a decent array of different kinds of colors. Some are more flat, some are less flat, some have a little bit of a green tinge, some of them are more dark, some of them are more pink. And that's the thing, the white balance is the same on all of these cameras. Everything's shot at similar exposures, but no matter how much trouble you go through, your cameras are always gonna look at least a little bit different. So we want to match these together to make them look like they at least live in the same world instead of gray world or super contrast world or green world or pink world or a kind of blown out low contrast mode. You get what I'm saying. So what I always like to do is start out with one shot. But which shot do you pick? You pretty much want to pick a shot that you want the rest of your footage to look like. Another reason you might pick a shot would be like if it's the hardest one to grade. Like for instance, this DJI Spark isn't really shot in a log format. There might be some clip data. So we could start with that one. I think what I'm going to do is start with my Cinema DNGs from the Ursa Mini 4K, and I'm going to try and match things to that. So we're pretty much just grading for a goal. Like we want all the other shots to attain this goal. It's like if you went out to the taco place and you had the best tacos ever, right? And then you come home and you're trying to make those tacos as good as that taco place. This is the ultimate tacos. And then the other ones are the other tacos. So what I'm going to do is make this one real tasty. Under my camera raw settings, this is only available under camera raw, and this is the only shot that I have that is in raw. So I'm going to start with that. Under decode using, I'm going to switch to clip, and that's going to let me adjust this clip individually. What I'm going to do is bring my lift down a little bit, bring my gain up just a little, boost my saturation, and that looks pretty nice. Maybe we'll start with that. So this is our goal. So I'm going to right click on this and say grab still, and that's going to add it to my gallery. Cool thing about that is I can bring this up over another shot, right click on it and say play still. Now I can wipe the screen with this shot and compare it to the shot I'm trying to grade. So why not? Let's match the CineStyle shot to the Ursa Mini 4K shot. And really here, it's just comparing the shots to see how they're different. First thing I notice about this shot is that the blacks are lifted, and it's definitely not as high contrast as the shot on the left. So let's start with that. I'm gonna bring up my scopes. And as I wipe this left to right, we can see that the blacks on the Ursa Mini shot are way down here, and they're way up here on the CineStyle shot. So we can pretty safely take that lift and just roll down on this and set those right about at that line. We can also look at the skin tone on the scopes. So Dan's face is right here on the parade for the left, and then right here on the right. So if I take my gain and I push that up, I can compare the levels of his face and try and get those around the same ballpark. So now these shots are looking definitely a little bit closer. I feel like these midtones are a little bit bright compared to this one. So what I'm going to do is take my gamma and roll that down a little bit. And we should see things getting very similar looking now. Now, the shot on the right, if we grab our vector scope, we can see this part on the scope is pushed a little bit more down towards yellow than this shot. And this shot definitely looks a little bit more blue than this shot. So what I can do is take my gain and push that a little bit warmer and see if that helps. Now his face is definitely getting a little bit closer. His shirt looks a little bit weird, but the background looks way off. This background is a little bit warm. This background looks cool in comparison. If we switch over to the parade, we can see the background is pretty high, up at like 256 on the red, down at 128 on green and blue. But on the right side of the shot, it's way down here. So that means we could probably push some warmth into the lift just a little bit, maybe some into the gamma. To bring a little bit more warm tones to the shot. Maybe I'll push up in my gamma a little bit because I want to match the brightness and the color. You'll see now that our background is getting a little bit closer to matching, and our subject's getting a little bit closer too. I think he might be a little bit red, so I'm going to take some warmth away in the gain. I feel like he's a little bit purple now, so I can just move my gain away from that purple. Now the only thing I think this is missing is a little bit of contrast, so what I'm going to do is make a new node, and in my custom curves I'm going to add a little bit of a curve here, see if I can match that. So we could probably spend a lot more time on this, fine-tuning it, but that's basically how you match a shot. You want to look at the darkest parts and the lightest parts, definitely the skin tones, and match the color tones as best as you can. Now we can move to a different shot. Here's our close-up from our GH3, and I'm going to move my wipe so I can see this side of his face, and we'll see this side of his face here. And again, I'm going to bring up my scopes and try to match the levels. The blacks look pretty similar. I'd say his skin needs to come up a little bit and probably needs a little bit of saturation, so I'm going to boost the gain a little bit. Add some saturation in there. Maybe needs to warm up a little. And we got to make sure that the skin is the same level as well as the same color. And comparing both sides, I'd say maybe this side of his face is a little bit bright compared to this side. And so I'll take the shadows down a little bit. That's looking better. Might be just a little pink. Push a little warmth in the midtones. There we have a decent match. The only thing I'd say is maybe this, looking at this black is a little bit too much, so I'm going to boost my lift back up and maybe bring my gamma down instead. Then, of course, on top of that, I'm going to add just a little bit of a curve so I can control my contrast, because you want to match, you also want to match your contrast. I'm going to boost my shadows just a little, somewhere in there. I'll go to my next shot. This is on the A7S, and I'll compare to this shot again. First of all, definitely looks like it needs to be warmer, needs more contrast. So I'm going to push my lift down a little bit to try and match the black levels on my scopes. I'm thinking it's going to need to be a little bit brighter, so I'm going to push the gain up and the gamma down to give it a little bit of contrast. I think it's going to have to be warmer because the background looks warmer. So maybe I'll push the gain towards warm a little bit. And I'll also saturate it a little more. So we're definitely getting in the ballpark. I'm going to add a curve to try and control the light on his face. This is looking pretty good. Could probably take the saturation down just a little. That's a decent match. Here I have my GoPro. Two very different cameras. And again, I'm going to match the shadows. Push those down a little bit. Push up my gain a little bit. Bring down my gamma. And saturate it. This GoPro looks a little bit pink, so I'm going to take some pink away from the gain. Kind of bring it more towards green. Doesn't look like that's working in the gain, so maybe I'll take a little bit out of the gamma. Maybe I'll do a little bit of both. So matching a little bit, I'll put my curve on to get those tones sitting about the same place. There, it looks like we're getting a decent match. Move on to my Ursa Mini 4K in BMD Film. This time I'm going to use a LUT. So I'm going to make a new node, go to 3D LUT, and I'm going to load the ground control BMD Film 4K to Rec. 709 LUT. That should give us a good starting point. I'm going to go to my first node, take the saturation down a little bit. Maybe boost the gamma a little bit because I feel like it's a little bit too high of a contrast. Move the lift up just a little. I want to match the shadows between the left and the right, and so I'm looking at my scopes here, trying to make them about the same. Next is the same picture style but on the production camera, and I'm just going to copy my grade from the last camera, and as you can see, even though these are the same picture style, it's coming in a lot greener. Again, it's the same white balance, it's the same everything, it's just a difference in cameras. So again, I'm going to boost my gamma up a little bit, boost my lift up a little bit, and take some of that green out of the gain. I'm just going to push it towards magenta a little bit. Bring my gain down. Bring my saturation down a little. Maybe warm up the gain. And I'm kind of just playing around with it until I get it pretty much in the ballpark. Maybe I'll take just a little bit away from that gain. I feel like the shadows are a little bit dark on the left, so I'm going to push the lift up just a little. Push the gain down just a little. I'm wanting these spikes to match, these spikes to match, and these spikes to match, and they're looking pretty good. I'd say maybe the gain could just be a little warmer. There we have a decent match between these cameras. Next shot is from the DJI Spark on a little drone, just to be ridiculous. And this is a pretty high contrast camera, and so there's not a lot of difference as far as contrast goes. I'd say maybe his face can come down, so I'm going to bring the gain down just a little bit and move the gain a little bit warmer and a little bit away from magenta. Maybe move my midtones a little bit warmer. That's looking pretty good. Pocket camera. And when you have a shot like this that isn't the exact same subject, you just look for things that are common. So like his skin tone needs to pretty much match his skin tone on his face. His shirt needs to match his shirt. This gray background needs to match the gray background. These shadows back here should be the same as the shadows back here. So again, I'm going to load a LUT. This is a ground control Vengeance 2 BMD Film to Rec. 709. You can do this without the LUT, but it just gives you an easier starting point. So in my first node under the LUT, I'm going to grab my lift and push that up a little bit so that the shadows match. Again, looking at the scopes, making sure the shadows are at similar levels. I feel like the shot on the left is a little bit more green, so I'm going to try and push the gain away from green a little bit, move it more towards a warm tone. That's looking better. I'm going to look at his shirt, see if the shirt looks pretty similar. I'd say I'd buy that. That's about right. I might take the saturation down just a little. And I feel like that's a pretty decent match. Only one left to do is the Mavic Pro. I'm going to load a LUT. I'm going to use our GC Heron D-Log to Rec. 709 LUT. This is available for free, groundcontrolcolor.com, like pretty much all of these transform LUTs. And this is coming in a little bit bright, so I'm definitely going to take that down in the node before the LUT, bring my shadows down a little bit. And this is definitely looking purple, so I'm going to take it away from purple, move it a little bit more towards warm. And that runs the risk of making his skin a little bit green. So I'm going to push my gamma a little bit more towards that purple. And also I'm going to take some purple out of my lift. Maybe I went too far on my gain. Push my gamma and my gain down to match the tones a little easier. Now we're definitely getting closer. The only problem is these light bulbs should be a little bit brighter. If we compare them to this shot. Push my gain back up. And the good news is this. If we can get this shot almost right, we can fix it with some fancy things. If I can get the background and the skin looking pretty darn close, I can fix his shirt, because that's going to be a telltale sign that these cameras were matched, because this shirt looks purple, This shirt looks kind of bluish green, and everything else looks about right. And that's just sometimes the way cameras handle colors. Some colors just look different on different cameras. So I'm going to hit Alt-S to add a node in between my LUT and my original corrections. This is going to be my secondary node. And I think what I'm going to do is just grab my curves and find hue versus saturation and use my eyedropper and just drag across the shirt. And that's going to show me on my curves where that shirt lives. And I can probably just bring down the saturation of that purple color. Maybe widen this out a little bit. And we're getting to a lot more of a believable spot here between those two shots. That'll also fix some of the purpleness in the rest of the shot. So it won't just fix the shirt. So those are decently matched. Again, I could play around with this all day. You can drive yourself crazy going through this, trying to match a shot. Hopefully you won't have to match 10 cameras. And when I'm done, I can turn off my reference wipe and go through my shots and switch in between them. And they should all feel like they pretty much live in the same place. And if one sticks out to you, odds are it doesn't match as well. So like this one feels like the shadows are maybe just a little bit dark. So I'm going to push the lift up a little bit, push the gamma up a little bit. Because in sequence, things should look like they live together. This one maybe needs a little bit more saturation, maybe a little less contrast. And you can kind of flip in between these shots and see which ones bother you. Like this bothers me a little bit. Feels like it's a little pink. So I'm going to bring some pink, some magenta out of the gamma, switch in between. That feels a lot better. Unless you shot with the exact same camera, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to get an absolutely perfect match. What you're trying to do is get it so when the edit switches shots, people aren't like, wow, that's a really different camera. Man, that is distracting, and I'm offended. You've offended me, and I'll never forgive you. You just want to avoid that. So none of these are exactly perfect, but that's pretty much how to get them in the ballpark. And with a little bit more tweaking, things will just get better and better. So here's what we started with, and here's where we are now. So there you go. That's how to match a bunch of cameras together. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below. If you like this, hit like. And for more color grading tutorials and post-production goodness, make sure to subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. My name is Casey Ferris. I will catch you next time.